In this video, we'll be covering a technique you can use to combine two different tables using VLOOKUP function. So this happens a lot in many companies. You'll have two different tables. So let's say in this case we have this table on the left. So in this table on the left I have product names and stock numbers. And in the table on the right we have stock numbers, type, price, and cost. And what we want to do is use the common stock number column and bring some information from the table on the right to this table on the left. So let's assume I want to get the price from this table on the left, on the right, to this table on the left. So what we would want to do is, let's say this is the stock number and it ends with 590, and if we look for that stock number, there it is. That's the price, $190. We would like to have that price showing up right here. And then for the next stock item, which is 374, we would find the stock number. There it is. Go get the price for it, $160, and have it over here, and so on for each item in the list. So let's do this using VLOOKUP functions. So we're going to go ahead and start with our equals sign and VL and tab to populate our VLOOKUP function. So again, the first value in our VLOOKUP function is the search key. So the key you're looking for is the item you're searching from the current table that you're in the other table where the information that you need is located. Now in this case, we're looking for this stock number that's in current row. So that's the stock number ending with 590. And we're going to search for that stock number in this table on the right, which is going to be right here. And once we find it, we would like to go and get the price, right? So that's what we're searching for. So we're going to hit comma. So the next thing is the range where we're looking for it. So we're going to go ahead and highlight the table on the right. And because the stock number is in the first column of this table, will be fine. So I'm highlighting the entire table. I'm going to hit F4 right away to lock the table, which is going to be very important because otherwise if we copy this formula down later on, the table would move down as well. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to not lock this table to show you what exactly happens when you don't lock it, and then we'll come back and correct it. So that's our table. So I'm going to go ahead and hit a comma. And the next one is index. So once we find it in this table on the right, which column do we want? So we count 1, 2, 3. The third column is the price. So comma, and finally is this sorted? No. So it's our false or 0. So I'm going to go ahead and close our parentheses, and you can see it's returning 190. So if it returns the correct thing, we're good. So that's 190. So I'm going to go ahead and try to copy this formula down to get for every other item. So you'll see we're getting this for some. But for example, this item 280, if you look at it, the item is here. It should have returned to $140, right? The reason it doesn't return, if we check what happened, is that when we copy the formula down, because we didn't lock the table has moved down by that many cells. So because of that, now our table is including half of the items and not including the other half. And sometimes we're lucky and it ends up picking the item because that item ends up being in that part of the table. And sometimes we're not, so we get not available. And this is why it's so important to always lock tables. This happens a lot that people will forget to lock this, and then it's a disaster in their data. So we're going to go ahead and go back to our first original formula, lock the table, F4, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight the cell and drag this down. And now because we actually did the right thing, that works. The last one returns NA still, and that's item 423. So that item doesn't exist in this table on the right. so therefore we're getting what we're getting. Now VLOOKUP as a default is going to return NA when it's not available. Now that could be just fine, but sometimes you may want to have a different value when the item is not available. So let's see how we can handle that. So let's say we want the cost. So first of all, let's create our regular cost formula to get the item cost. So I'm going to go ahead and start by VLOOKUP, and the search key again is going to be the stock number. It's the value that's joining these two tables together. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the range, obviously including the cost because that's what I'm going to need. F4 to lock table, and 1, 2, 3, 4 is the column we need, and finally exact match is 0. So there it is, enter. I'm going to send this down for now, and again the same thing, it works just fine. Because this item is not available, we're returning an NA. And what we want to do is return something more customized when it's not available. So I'm going to go ahead and open my first formula that I have. I'm going to select the entire VLOOKUP function. I'm not including the equal sign, just the function and everything in here with parentheses with our function. I'm going to go ahead and cut it with my Control X or Command X. And there we are. So now what I'm going to do is use a function IFERROR. IFERROR is a function that can handle errors, and it's not made specifically for VLOOKUP. It can handle errors from any formula. So the idea of this function is that if you have a formula that could potentially return an error, you can handle it using IFERROR. And the way it works, you'll start your IFERROR function, open parentheses, and the value argument in this function is going to be that formula that could potentially return an error. So in this case, it's going to be our VLOOKUP formula that sometimes returns NA as an error. So after that, I'm going to hit comma, and after the comma, we have to provide, so what happens when this formula returns an error. So what I'm going to do is provide some text, and since this is text, I'm going to put it in quotes. So I'm going to say item not available. Make sure I have the quote to close the text, close my parentheses for my IFERROR function, hit enter. So now I'm going to go back, click on the first one, drag it down. So you'll see that all the other items are returning the dollar amounts, but when we have an error, in this case that error is NA, not available, it says item not available. That's where our IFERROR function kicks in and returns this value. Now that's in case you want a text. Now what you can do is also sometimes want a number. So let's say the cost, we're going to say it's 0 if we were not able to find it. So if it's a number, there are no quotes around it. Because this is text, we use this quotes. Because it's a number, we can just say 0, just type the number in. And again, if I drag this down, now you can see when there's an error, it says 0. Okay, and finally, a very common thing you may want to do is sometimes leave it blank when it's not available. So usually if we want to type some sort of message as an error, we just go in here and type our message in this quotes, right? Like item not available. Now when you just want it to be blank, what you do, just don't type the message, just do double quotes and nothing in between. So if I go ahead and hit enter, you'll see it's still returning all those prices, but now this cell is blank when it's not available. So that's a common way to handle our IFERROR and VLOOKUP functions and work them together. So easy way to handle them. So now let's see how we can do this if we're on we have our data on multiple tabs. So in this particular case, we had two tables. They were located on the same tab, so it was pretty easy to do the entire thing. Now if you have multiple tabs, let's say we have this tab, merge data 1, that has our first table that we had on the left, and this merge data 2 has this table that's on the right. Right now, this is a common thing. So in a lot of companies, if you're working with people, most of the time these tables are going to be located in two separate tabs. So let's do this again. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this table. This is where I want to return the price from this table on this tab that I have, and the value that's in common in both tables is stock number. Now again, if my stock number column was to the right of my price column, I would have to move them around and make sure that price appears to the right of my stock number to be able to use VLOOKUP. But in this case, it's going to be just fine. It's the first column, so that's looking good. So we can go ahead and do our VLOOKUP right away. So I'm going to go ahead and go to merge data, type my equals VLOOKUP. The search key is going to be the stock number in the current row in the current table. There it is, comma. And after the comma, we have to select the table range. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the second tab, merge data 2, and I'll go ahead and highlight the table same way. Carefully hit F4 right away on this table and continue with my formula, comma, right here. So index, so again 1, 2, 3, that's the price, comma, and finally this is exact match, which is either false or 0 option here. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. 190, fill this down, and it works just fine working with this data on the second tab in our file. And this is the way you can use VLOOKUP to combine two different tables. Now, the other thing I want to mention here before we finish, let's say in addition to having just price, I also want the cost and type, right? So I'm going to go ahead and type that, cost type. Now, in this case, I don't have to really retype the entire formula. What I need to do is simply just go inside of this formula, carefully copy it, escape to get out of it. I'm going to double click, paste the formula, and all I have to change is really the column index. So the cost was the fourth column. There it is. And in type, I'm going to double click and paste and change it to the second column. That's a running shoe. All we have to do is just drag this down. So we don't have to recreate the entire formula. We simply just copy, paste, and change the index value. Now, there are usually more dynamic ways to change the index value if you have a lot of columns. We'll get to it, but for, you know, a couple of columns or 2-3 columns, this works just fine. So it's not worth getting through all those more, you know, advanced techniques of changing different columns. All right, so that's it for our merging data. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We'll get to our next VLOOKUP example in our next video.